Good morning, good afternoon, or good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to Open Up, our live talk show. I'm RJ Horner, and I'm the host of Open Up, and I'm also the vice president at Voice of Men 360. So thank you for joining us today on behalf of myself and the Voice of Men 360 team. Voice of Men 360 is a not-for-profit organization founded in Toronto, Canada in 2020. Voice of Men 360 was born out of seeing a tremendous need in helping to step up and support our men and boys overcome their life challenges. We're part of International Men's Day, and International Men's Day has now been serving for over 21 years and is represented in 90 countries who join to do various activities around the world. International Men's Day follows 6 pillars, which represent the overall well-being of boys and men, and we follow in those same footsteps here in Voice of Men 360. But why is Open Up so important? Because we men are not open with our matters. We don't share our important topics, or we don't open our hearts to people. And when we keep these emotional challenges within ourselves for any period of time, it can create ill health effects, which we want to avoid. That's why we want to create an open space and allow individuals to share their life journey through our platform. We aim to create awareness about the life challenges and the struggles and the overcomings that our boys and men have to go through in their lives. There are no limitations with gender, age, nationality, or ethnic groups with sharing your life journey. All walks of life are invited to participate. Our goal is to make a positive impact on someone's life through this program, Open Up, which is on Wednesdays at 6 p.m. and Sundays at 10 a.m. Eastern Time, where we bring individuals to share their journey and share their experiences with you to help empower our men and boys. I'd like to remind you at this time that Voice of Men 360's mission is always delivered with good faith towards peaceful harmony. The views and opinions expressed in today's episode are those of our speakers and do not necessarily represent Voice of Men 360. Our organization engages in discussion forums to offer inspiration and create awareness to the issues of men who wish to overcome their life challenges. We are not providing medical or therapeutic advice. Should you require that type of assistance, we recommend you contact a medical professional immediately. If you have questions or concerns about today's episode or any Voice of Men 360 content, please email us info@voiceofmen360.org. Today, our speaker is Lee Millard. He's been involved as a prominent men's equality advocate for several decades, beginning in the 80s. He began writing his first book, Equality, A Man's Claim, in the spring of 1983. Thereafter, he's continually been affiliated with other men's rights organizations, contributed many articles, radio, and television broadcasts. His work includes research conducted through his graduate and doctorate work, and knowledge acquired through his independent studying colleagues as a university professional. He headed the group Men's and Fathers for Justice, still exists in virtual form through Facebook, where he heads the group Men's Equality. He authored 3 books addressing men's equality. His most recent book, we're going to talk about a bit today, A Flaw from Within: How Women's Higher Status Defies Equal Justice, Violates Men, and Destroys Society, which is available on Amazon. So please welcome Lee Millard. Thank you for joining us and being willing to share your life journey with us today.
Thank you, RJ. Greetings. I appreciate the opportunity to be here.
Wonderful. Again, you have quite the experience in men's issues, men's rights. Tell us a little bit about, go back as far as you can and tell us maybe where this passion comes from.
Well, it's rooted in my ability to think for myself and be a rational thinker, which I thank my mother and father for from when I was quite young. Part of my passion, just part of it, it started when I could see growing up that women or girls were treated different from boys. And not that that's wrong in a sense as far as developing into a boy or girl, but when girls are treated special and given more values than boys, then that becomes a problem. And being the rational thinker and not completely groomed to be a pawn, disposable pawn. Although that probably happened to some degree, I was bothered by that. And few years later, then came the Vietnam War and how young men were being killed like flies, and we were groomed to take it like a man and become quote unquote men. I questioned it further, and also during that time, later times in the Vietnam era, the women were also concerned for their brothers and men, their friends, and they were fighting for men to be not sent to Vietnam and against the war and for their behalf. And there was an era there where we did have an awareness of real equality, not the feminism version, but real equality between men and women. Feminism was there just starting, and nobody even heard of it. It wasn't an issue. It wasn't a big deal. But all of a sudden, this brief period of time, and during this time, Esther Villera's book, The Manipulated Man, came out, which is a testament to the sediment that existed. There was men's equality concerns and women's issues. And then it was that point that I was really involved in the effort. And I became involved as far as a listener. And I thought, God, this is really cool. But then all of a sudden, feminism commandeered the whole effort and took it to a place that it shouldn't have went, and that was completely inaccurate, and misconceptions were galore. And through propaganda, that's when I said to myself, I'm going to do something. I'm going to be involved in this, because it can't go on this way. It's destroying our society. And my claim that equality actually stood more for men's better position than women's. And so I began writing. I began putting together notes and all, and then also using college to increase my writing abilities. And so I could convey the message and all the misconceptions. And that's when I started writing in the spring of '83, this book, Equality, a Man's Claim. That's kind of the very beginning. And but I did, through the course of all these years, even prior, there were women, like I said, who were rational-minded women, and they got phased out. And I swear, as I've said before, women fear other women more than they fear men.
Absolutely. So let me ask you this. Let's have that little bit of a discussion if we can. Are you against feminism? Is there issues against feminism? Let's talk about that for a moment.
Yeah, I'm against feminism.
Why?
It's based. There's no premise upon which feminism, no legitimate premise upon which feminism is built. It's built on hate and total misconceptions. It comes from a traditional female bias, and that's chivalry. And if it weren't for chivalry, feminism wouldn't exist. I call chivalry traditional misandry, and feminism, of course, is modern misandry, the hate of men.
What is misandry? Explain for people. What do you mean?
Explain. Misandry is the hatred towards men and discarding men, like disposable pawns. The way men have been groomed from boyhood to serve women as to define their manhood goes back many centuries in our culture. And that's the premise upon which I began writing my first book. And then especially when misconceptions came into the scene with feminism's influence.
So you've done a lot of this work on men's issues, around the equality issue, not necessarily feminism. I'm going to take you away from that for just a moment, just because we want to get back into what inspired you. We talk about the father and son relationship a lot here. So if you wouldn't mind, talk about your father for a moment and what influences he may have had on you as you're growing into adulthood.
Well, my father and I, a lot of times would work together. In times that we also went fishing or hunting, they were special bonding experiences, but both offered an intellectual premise too. It's like when we worked together, he'd explain to me as we were working with tools and all, and figuring out, he was a carpenter as well as many other things, but he'd show me how to use certain tools and then apply mathematics to them. And he'd make it so you could vision certain, my grandpa did this too, his dad, but in the case of like using a handsaw, he'd show me how to make it glide. He's like, I'd say, well, you got to make the tool do the work and do it properly. And because you paid money for this, and it's here to help you. Like the hammer, the way you swung a hammer, you got more force if you hold the hammer further down. And also, he'd express like philosophies when we were doing things, and that helped me think. And it also got me into reading, because reading developed my mind and took it places as well. And it matched up with a lot of things that we were doing. A little later than this, we got into a feed and cattle business, and that was a totally different adventure too in my life. We'd end up trucking, and I'd go with him, and I'd help load the cattle and do feeding and all that. And then we'd go to our destination quite a ways, a few hundred miles away, and then we'd bring hay and grain feed back, and we'd have conversations when we were traveling, and that'd add to my knowledge and my bonding with my father. There's a difference. We need a balance between a mother and a father. We need both influences in our lives. We shouldn't abandon either one. Both parents are very important. And they just offer, seems like, different feelings and perspectives. And sometimes both perspectives in your mother and father are combined too. And that's kind of a nice feeling when that effect takes place. I remember as far as like my thinking when I was growing up, that I was told that the most advanced thought process is a conscience. And that's probably the premise upon which my men's equality involvement is built upon. But certain skills I learned from my dad. We'd also be in a situation where like we're fishing or hunting, and he'd point out certain things to me as far as the environment and being savvy to some of the things that were taking place. And that was kind of adventurous for me. Gotcha. And formed a bonding.
Yeah, so you get respect for life, great advice. We're getting an echo here. Okay, it's gone. So great. Nope. Anyways, thank you for that. Because again, I'm glad you mentioned the father and mother influence. You know what? It's great to have the influences. Not all of us have the influence of both. But really, we need a balance, right? And that's what equality is all about. So that is great that it leads us back into there's where your passion comes from, I think, right? So talk about how that passion led you into your work and where you've taken it.
Well, that's part of ethics, and I applied that to my involvement with men's equality because that's the premise upon which it's really built, is what's right, what's just. I say equality, and I don't want to veer, even though sometimes I also refer to myself as a men's rights advocate and then an MRA. However, men's equality is better as being comprehensive because that includes everything. It includes men's value, men's acknowledgement, not just their rights. Without equal value to women, men are easily considered pawns, disposable pawns without rights. So their value is important too. And that's kind of where I noticed, even, gosh, when I was 8 to 10, 12 years old, I seen a difference in what was a value between girls and boys. And I seen this, what I call bigotry, sex bigotry, being taught at a very young age. And I thank God and probably my mom and dad for being perceptive to that.
What do you mean by that? So they recognized that you weren't getting this type of education, and they were able to fill that need. Is that what you're referring to?
No, I was able to think for myself at a very young age, and it allowed me to be perceptive to this influence, what was going on, and how girls came first, women were placed on a pedestal above men. I could see that. I'd go to there'd be birthday parties, and those terms and those practices would be evident there, where girls came first and they got ice cream or cake first, and that sort of thing. So that it happened. My perception happened very young.
Right. And you know what? I think we have the right to be able to do so at this age, right? We have the right as young men to be able to think for ourselves and think these thoughts, and whether they're rational, and then what to do with those thoughts, right? So, again, you've taken it into what you call men's equality or equality. Let's just leave it at equality, because one of our pillars, the men's International Men's Day pillars, is to improve gender relations, and I think that's really what it's all about, right?
Oh, that's a part of it, yeah. Not just relations, but value, and the laws. We've got to reverse a lot of the damage that's already been done to even get back to where we were prior to when chivalry was still in place. So we got to get rid of that as well. But we've got a lot of erasing to do in the process.
So tell about, if you wouldn't mind, some of those laws. Again, you've been an advocate, so you must understand some of the laws that are against men or unjust that maybe have been created because of feminism or in the years that have followed.
Mostly because of feminism, although women have always been given a break as far as sentencing, committing crimes, and or excuses. They're not held equally accountable to women, to men. And this has been played upon significantly by feminists. For example, Biden's responsible for the Violence Against Women Act. And that's discriminatory as you can be. And it's against our Constitution. And actually, there's more violence expressed against men by women, more domestic violence included, than there is vice versa. And the research is that last I seen it was 68%. No, excuse me, 70% by Murray Strauss, Dr. Strauss. He's very well known. And that was at Harvard. And I mean, that's very significant. But again, the VAWA, the Violence Against Women Act, is a very prominent breach of justice against men. And okay, the Title IX, I think you're probably familiar with Title IX. It started out in our colleges and universities as a attempt to bring sports into that arena for girls and women. But it ended up, it also was against discrimination, which really didn't take place, except they just weren't included. Males started out in sports naturally, and they build it up as far as their sports programs and all from scratch. And what it did, though, it took away from boys and men what they already had and divided it with women, with girls and women. And so it was very selfish in the way that it was put across, and it depleted the opportunities for men and boys. And that's another example. And it's also expanded to have their own kangaroo courts in our universities and colleges where males are, it's so twisted that males are deemed very low class, and that with a toxic environment towards males in this environment where that's used, the money is used to go against like any kind of expressions on men's behalf, or like sexual harassment, or even to determine rape without due process on your universities and college campuses. And so they can deem a male as a rapist without going through the due process. And it's kind of like kangaroo courts. And we've heard a lot about this fairly recently.
I love that you mentioned due process, because that is something that, as much as we preach that in our courts, it seems that these things are missing. That's the thing that we're not getting.
Even outside the universities, yes, but it's much worse. And also, what we have as part of that illegitimate process is rape shield laws, where they're not even entitled, only due to rape, not other crimes. They're not even allowed to defend themselves. And they've changed as far as rape laws goes, and sexual violence. They've changed what even qualifies. And it only applies to men. Like in the case of, if you're intoxicated, if two people, which is very common as far as getting together and as a prerequisite to having sex, they have drinks. They have a couple drinks. And for crying out loud, if you have a drink or two and you're with a woman, the man is automatically to blame. It's called rape. It's designated as rape. Well, what happens when there's two women together? Who rapes the other then? That right there, that's self-exclamatory as far as prejudice and discrimination. That's illegal per our Constitution, but yet allowed. That's just another example. There are many more examples of laws against men that are just them. Gee whiz. There's other examples too, but
No, that's fine. I understand. So then explain, why is it that you're so, again, your book is really talking about how, and I think what we're saying is we've gone too far. We've tried to get equality, but now we've tipped the scale to where now it's persecution.
well, it's definitely persecution, but there was no attempt for equality to begin with. And I don't like as I've mentioned in my books, there is no tipping of scales. A scale is based on this scale, an ethical scale. Equality scale is based on no tipping it either way. You tip it one way, it's not right, it's unethical, it's just as just as you tipping it the other way. Because you will never have what's right unless it's in the middle. And if somebody on one side's violated, the other person's violating on the other, so that doesn't even out. It just adds more injustice.
Right. So I mean, honestly, all we can do is truly find balance and not seek true equality.
Well, no, true equality is somewhere in the middle, where you look at the characteristics of both sexes and then compromise those differences when there are major differences to be contended with.
I like that. But then how do we get everybody to agree on the compromise, which is the proper compromise? Rather than, like you say, Biden creating these laws that again violates other people.
How do we do it? We don't make laws that violate other people.
But how do we get everybody to agree if we don't make some kind of laws?
Awareness, understanding. We need to understand. And then based upon that understanding and awareness, that knowledge, then we can build upon that premise to make fair laws.
Right. And that's why we have people like yourself to bring out your opinion and your thoughts behind these kind of things.
Well, I don't even call it opinion. I call it the truth. And knowledge is based on truth.
But I'll tell you, not to insult you, Alan, but there's other people out there who will say, you know what? Oh my God, this guy, I hate what he's had to say, and he's totally wrong. Not to say you're wrong or right. But you've challenged their thinking, right? So they'll have a various opinion.
Oh yes, I deal with that practically every day.
Right. But again, there's how we find that balance, by having these conversations, and this is the awareness that we're talking about. So.
Well, a lot of these people I have that kind of a rapport with or conversation with are very ignorant people. They don't know when I bring up certain things and knowledge and information, facts and experiences and all that take place, then they get mad. They can't defend themselves. It's like a lot of feminists. They just get mad and they call you names. They call you misogynist and all that crap. And it's because they take offense to the truth. That's the very basic foundation to any kind of conversation you have or debate. You
have to be delicate with how you deliver the truth. Do you not find that?
Yes, to some degree, yes. You got to have some finesse and diplomacy to a certain point. That's with a rational minded person. Mm-hmm. But with those that aren't rational, they are already out there. It doesn't matter what you say, if it's the truth or not. They're already out there to destroy you. Then no.
Yeah, I understand. You know what? When you got those kind of people, unfortunately, they're people we're going to have to deal with in our life. They're going to cross us. But when it's the other people who are just not willing to have that conversation, I say, you know what? Okay, we can agree to disagree, and I hope this doesn't affect you. You know what I mean? That's all you can do is, okay, you don't see my opinion or you don't see the way I'm telling you this, but you know what? Maybe it won't affect you in your life that way. Right. So,
yeah, I guess. Yeah. I guess that's one way of putting it, but
well, because we can't please everybody and we can't change everybody's point of view, right? And we
no, but you've got to have your standing on solid ground. You've got to know your subject, your your people, your human dynamics. Believe me, I've studied this every day of my life, and it's become a part of me. And I've prided myself in acquiring knowledge through anthropology, sociology, psychology, research, my own research through my graduate and doctoral studies. And I know it inside and out. And it's like, I don't value anything unless I know it's true. And I've incorporated it into the whole, into a comprehensive whole. Yeah.
and a lot of people don't do that.
Oh no, hell no. They're influenced a lot of times by religion, by the way they were raised, by tradition, and of course by feminism and their influence. And this is
outside influences, right?
Yeah, they're not relying on their own intellect or intellectual potential, if that even exists amongst most people. But
Yep.
they're constantly getting this propaganda through the media and our educational system and through politics. And it's coming at all different directions. But once you bring the truth out there and they see it and they experience it, they feel it, then it's like, wow, that is really cool. I don't know if you remember those V8 commercials that, oh, I should have had a V8. Yeah. Well, I've had several people who have told me that my work caused them to have a complete, I guess you'd say, renaissance in their minds.
Yeah.
And they've credited with me for having turned their life around because of that. So when things like that happen, it makes me feel good.
Right. But it's the conversations. And that's what we do here too. So now in your vast experience, it's time we kind of add some advice or guidance to the people out there. So in your thoughts, what can our young men and boys do to empower their own life?
They need to think of themselves, but with the help of others, as to be better than what society is telling them they are. They have to build up, they have to acquire, with the help of others, a self-worth and self-respect based upon that self-worth, that they are no longer to be groomed to serve women and to define themselves, their own manhood in their own right. Their own existence is to be defined for them, not anyone else. And upon that premise, that will develop a complete and whole person.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Thank you for that. So then what can we as a society do to empower them on their journey?
As a society, we need to completely turn around where we're going and undo these unjust laws, understand men and boys, and really give them some credit that their existence is to be for them. Understand how they're made. Quit attacking their sexuality and endorse their needs and come to compromises. I mean, in the past, we even understood them more than we do now. And say they're good, they're all right. They're not dirty. They're not to be circumcised right when they come out of the womb. And that's been a punishment for them being born male for eons. And that's the first. I mean, this dirty dirty male stigma, guilty male stigma has got to go. And we've got to love men and boys the same way we do women and girls. No more of this princess looking for her prince, that kind of crap, where girls are spoiled and placed on a pedestal to boys being the ones to serve them and get down on one knee to ask them to marry them. And as far as marriage, that's a whole new can of worms, how it's just set up for women. And even after that, men must also serve them in child custody, letting them have child custody and the home and pay alimony, child support. I mean, that's all got to go. It's got to be an equal arrangement all the way around from the very start.
Yeah, the justices are totally right now. Again, only by having these conversations and being able to create the awareness can we do something to change it. But again, thank you.
Process too. I mean, they're shivering the mating process that shouldn't exist, and men should be equally sought as women, and women should be putting out their efforts and risking rejection, paying the ways too. I mean, that they wanted equality. Well, that's a part of it.
Yeah, I've said that before, that, you know what, people have to, again, question what you ask for, because again, you ask for one thing, but you have to know what comes along with what you're asking for. And, you know, when you ask for equality, again, know what you're asking for, because there's going to be a lot of things you're not going to like in that whole process.
And so far, they've just picked, as far as women and feminists, their influence, they've just pick and choose from the past and present what they wanted. And besides that, it's now coming at men's expense, additional expense.
And so we've got to do that. Again, that I'm sure this equality is a topic for another day. But you've given us a lot of information. Is there anything you'd like to share with us before you leave today?
Well, I'd like to invite people to Men's Equality on Facebook, as well as to check out my books on Amazon, Equality of Man's Claim, as I showed earlier. And then also my latest, excuse me, I think I screwed this up, but A Flaw from Men is my latest book. And Equality of Man's Claim, of course, was my first. I do have a book in between that, like I mentioned earlier, applies to a lot of to men in society now, but it incorporates kind of a larger perspective. It's land, people, politics, and ignorance, and it's a pretty comprehensive book of as far as other issues go in. Fitting into the whole of our world, I guess you might say.
Trying to make a society.
Yes, and it's amazing how well kind of this ties in to like a lot of like the United Nations now is pretty much, as far as the equality thing goes, run by feminists, and that shows right there how these big organizations like corporations take over, and they get a lot of money that's used illegitimately, and that actually do damage to a lot of people. That's kind of where that definitely fits in, land, people, politics, and ignorance.
Gotcha. Thank you. Thank you for all of that. Thank you again for joining us today and sharing your life journey and the struggles that you've gone through and the experiences that you've had.
Thank you. I appreciate you having me here, and I hope it makes some difference.
Absolutely. Thank you. Absolutely. I think it will. I really do. It may have been controversial, like I said, but these are the conversations we have. So I thank you very much.
It's like breaking the ice, isn't it? It's like we're not allowed to speak. And that's another thing, is freedom of speech.
And that's what this forum is, right? Open up. So I thank you. Thank you very much. That
You
was
bet.
Alan Lee Millard. You can get his books, like he said, they're available on Amazon, especially his new one, Flaws from Within. So again, we have a few announcements. As many Canadians know, our Indigenous communities are still in crisis and they need our help and support. Voice of Men 360 is stepping up. And until International Men's Day, we are continuing with our donation drive for Indigenous families. If you have any items to donate, used clothing, dry food goods, or any other donatable goods, we're working to collect them. Please reach out to us at 416 356 7414 or our phone number 437-889-8329. Email us info@voiceofmen360.org or reach out to us through Facebook Messenger. We're working to coordinate and collect those items. We have several live shows that we participate here in. The first you've just joined us in is Open Up, where we invite people to share their life personal journey with you and talk to help empower our men and boys. We share their life journeys Wednesdays at 6 p.m. and Sundays at 10 a.m. Eastern Time on Open Up. We have the same thing in Tamil language for a show called Vili, which means I. That one is the same thing where we invite people to share their life journey in Tamil language on Sundays at 8 a.m. Eastern Time. We also host a monthly webinar. That's the first Saturday of every month at 10:30 Eastern Time, where we invite people out or we invite organizations out to discuss a particular topic of interest to them and to you. We also have the Unspoken Tears, which is a monthly special show. This one is the topic of domestic violence against men, bullying, male sexual abuse, traumas, and human trafficking. These things do exist and we discuss them here. That takes place the second Saturday of every month, 10 a.m. to 11 a.m. Eastern Time. We also co-host a show with the All Bengal Men's Forum. And that one is the South Asian Men Show. Again, topics of South Asian men, but we invite different countries to discuss topics of interest to their region. And then we turn all of our episodes into podcast content. So look for us on all of your favorite platforms, Google Play, Spotify, iTunes, and more. And then we have some support groups here. The first one is Men for Men Only. This one is a men's peer group. It's every 2 weeks on Tuesdays from 6 p.m. to 7:30 p.m. Please register for through Zoom. The next one we just had one yesterday, so 2 weeks from Tuesday, October 19th. Again, please register and join us through Zoom. The next one is a peer-to-peer support group for Indigenous, and we call this one Pass the Talking Stick. It takes place the fourth Friday of every month, 6 p.m. to 7 p.m. through Zoom. The next one will be on October 22nd, so please register and join us for that. Again, there are no limitations with gender, age, nationality, of ethnic groups. All walks of life are invited to participate in our programming. If you want to be a guest on our shows or willing to be a part of our organization, help us whether directly or indirectly, please reach out to us. We want to work with government officials, NGOs, corporations, professionals, authorities and experts, community organizations, and more. Please reach out to us again. Our phone number is 437-889-8329 or email us info@voiceofmen360.org. You can reach us at our website, www.voiceofmen360.org, and you can find us on all of your social media platforms, Instagram, LinkedIn, Twitter, TikTok. Don't forget to like and subscribe here on YouTube for more videos. And visit us on Facebook, facebook.com/groups/Voice of Men 360, because we're on a mission to raise the voice, to raise the awareness, to raise our numbers by more than double by this International Men's Day, November 19th. We want to reach 5,000 members. So please like, share, and subscribe. Help raise the voice and help raise our support. We want to continue the great work we do. and we want to reach out and help more people. So please continue your support. Please continue to raise the voice of Men 360. Thank you for joining us today. Again, until next time, I'm the Vice President of Voice of Men 360 and your host, asking you to open up.